tell the right honourable gentleman what the record of this government is. A deficit down by over two-thirds. 3 million more people in jobs. 1.8 million more children in good or outstanding schools. More people visiting A&E. More people getting operations than ever before. Record levels of funding into the NHS. Record levels of funding. Record levels of funding in the NHS. Record levels of funding into our schools.
Wow, where do I even begin with this? Let's just break it down.
It's a deficit down by over two-thirds.
Hang on a minute. Before you start boasting about the deficit, government borrowings just soared by 2 billion quid. Current estimates put the deficit at 58 billion. And let's not forget the 145 billion quid debt run up by your Chancellor, Philip Hammond. His eye-watering IOU is the biggest amount any Chancellor's racked up in their first year in office since records began. And get this, just hours before that was revealed, he had the hypocrisy to accuse Labour of borrowing their way out of every problem. You just can't make this stuff up. Thanks to this government, the UK is now the worst performing advanced economy in the world. It's lagging behind all the other countries in the G7.
3 million more people in jobs.
You didn't mention that over 800,000 people are on zero-hours contracts and 19 million people are on the verge of poverty, even though most have jobs. And let's get this straight, of the 4 million kids now living in poverty, thanks to this government, two-thirds of them are in families where at least one parent's actually working.
1.8 million more children in good or outstanding schools.
Credit for that goes to the schools themselves, not your government. Credit goes to all the hard work of the teachers, the staff and pupils themselves against a national backdrop of a funding and recruitment crisis. The reality is the government is failing an entire generation of pupils. Almost 300 schools are failing, and the attainment gap between disadvantaged pupils and their peers is actually widening.
More people visiting A&E, more people getting operations than ever before.
Come off it. The number of patients forced to wait over 12 hours in A&E has actually soared by more than 6,000% since the Tories took power. Millions of patients are suffering the longest ever waits for casualty care, beds, cancer treatment and operations.
Record levels of funding into the NHS.
Seriously? A damning report by the Care Quality Commissions just said the health service is crumbling, straining at the seams, could keel over as early as next year. Just a few months back, the British Red Cross said the NHS is facing a humanitarian crisis. Spending on the NHS is actually growing at the slowest rate since records began in 1955. NHS spending now stands at a measly growth rate of only 1.1%. We've got the longest A&E waiting time since 2004, fewer beds and doctors than almost anywhere in the EU, and an NHS facing a crisis in morale, in staffing, and social and mental health services at the point of imminent collapse. The reality is this government is starving the NHS of cash and putting thousands of lives at risk.
Record levels of funding into our schools.
Just a minute. Education Secretary Justine Greening announced in July she was ploughing an extra 1.3 billion quid into schools. But it turned out that was all just smoke and mirrors, because every penny of that is being raised from other education departments. There's no new cash. The Tories have cut billions of pounds from the school budget, so that will do nothing to help schools struggling as a result. Just this week, Theresa May visited a school in Streatham which will lose a staggering 359,000 quid of funding and 6 teachers in Tory cuts. Schools are facing a recruitment crisis. We've got the highest leaving teacher rate in a decade. 10,000 left the profession between 2010 and 2015. Teacher training places are going unfilled. There's simply not enough teachers to educate our kids. And is it any wonder teachers' salaries have fallen 15% behind inflation since 2010? The reality is our schools are in crisis.